Redgate!
Thank you. So very warm welcome everyone on this session where we will talking about how the databases and the administration is evolving during the period of time. It's a little introduction about myself. So my name is Atul Kumar. I live in Melbourne, Australia. I'm a SQL DBA, and I also start working on the BI part, so where I do the lot of development and the data visualization. I'm a Microsoft certified and also did my Microsoft certified trainer. Okay, so let's move what we are going to talk today. So mainly we will be talking about the Microsoft product. So we'll try to deep into some of SQL Azure. We'll touch base what is the Synapse and the Cosmos DB. And from there, we'll go forward. This is the small agenda we have for today. So we'll talk how the database started, what is the growth opportunity, things are there, and then we'll go into more detail about Azure databases. We'll have a couple of demos to showcase how things are working, how we can make the use of it. And then also we'll compare some of the traditional DB activity and how when the cloud is evolving, this all traditional tasks or our responsibility are changing over a period of time. So our main focus for today's session will be the Azure SQL database. When we talk about data, so data starts from the very early days of our childhood. So the data and the management, both of them, like when we start learning something properly, so we start from alphabet and we always start from A, B, C, D in a particular order way. Now, as a kid, when we were trying to understand, okay, what A for apple, how it relates. So to make it more understanding and give a better understanding to the kids or to the people, we give a pictorial presentation. That is what we call reports in today's world. But yeah, that reporting process starts from early days of our child. We may not notice it. And this is called the visualization effect of information. So as we grow, the time flies. This ABCD grows to further, and then we start combining the relevant information into particular subjects. And that's we call a different subjects. So in the real life also, when we have a number of, when we have a database, it has a number of tables, and those tables basically represent a particular set of information, and obviously they'll have their own relationship to make more meaningful information, more meaningful values when we are trying to represent as a report. Okay, so let's talk about something the database, like when it started, how in the computer world, how the database started and where it goes. So the first computer database was built in 1960. It was part of a project work by a professor. And the first commercial database in the was brought by Oracle, and it was in 1979. From there onwards, it's all flows the DB2 SAP. But until 89, I think Microsoft was just trying to build a database, and that is the period when they first time represented SQL Server 1.0. But still, it takes good amount of time, and as different versions were evolving, a lot of features were being added. It was 1998 when they released SQL Server 7. Initially, all the database designed by the period was like they are supposed to run on a single machine, because that's what the one computer, you call it server, and then there your relational database will be service will be installed and people will be using it. So all the design was initially like that, but as the period grows, the technology grow, so it all become dynamic. And in 2010, Microsoft first introduced cloud-based SQL Azure. So why do we need this cloud and why it is so common? There are two aspects of it. One aspect we see because of cloud, the information is available on your wherever you have internet services. You can access your information from anywhere, from any device almost. And the boundary of location, the limitation of your resources are just, phasing away. So that's where the cloud is growing and going. And the need was, if you look at the journey of, so journey of SQL Server is like when we said like on 89, the server 1 was started, and over a period of time, we are currently having SQL Server 2019. And in general, a version of SQL Server, the life cycles from support from Microsoft perspective is around 10 years. In Azure also, every year they keep on the version keep on changing as time flies. And today we are having SQL Server 2019. And any new release of a SQL Server get first in the cloud. So means the Azure SQL is always updated version compared to our on-premises database server. So as I was saying that, what is the need of going to the cloud? Because if you look at this chart, it presents that how our data is growing over a period of time. And it is expected that by the time of 2015, probably 175 zettabyte of data will be generating, and it's tremendous. You can't have a device where you can store this all data in one place. That's where the distributed storage system is growing, and the cloud is helping in that regards. So as I was saying that the data is growing faster than how we can visualize or we can imagine. So just to give you some hints on that, on Google, we are doing every day around 3.5 billion search happens. So the Google has tremendous amount of data, and as a consumer, as an end user, there are 3.5 billion search happens every day. So we can imagine that how much data the Google stores with respect to just search process, because it retains the history of user, what we are searching for a period of time. WhatsApp, I think one of the most commonly used app, the mobile app, is having every day around 65 billion messages. In 2020, it is said that every person generates 1.2 megabytes per second. That's a huge number if we just calculate the world population and we translate it to an hour. And as a lot of devices are growing, like small micro app, your SMS, WhatsApp, Twitter, Facebook, and others. So a lot of data is being generated as unstructured, means data is just as a plain text when you message from a person to another person, when you share a picture. So they are not well structured. That is how they are designed, because that is the purpose of different tools, how they should operate. So now from database perspective, normally we talk about structured data, maybe semi-structured, but as the time is growing, as the usage is growing, as the different ideas is coming into picture, so we are having all different varieties of data. Data interaction has went, 5,000 times between just last 10 years. It's growing much faster, and as I said, it is growing much faster what we can think of. And as all IoT devices are coming into picture, which monitors your mobile devices, all the traffic lights and the sensors. So it says that IoT devices could rise to 41.6 billion by 2015. So each IoT device will be again presenting a good amount of data depending on how much information they are capturing and transmitting back to the storage place. And this is just a view like how we are doing the data search. So it says the number of internet users around the world, the number of websites. Look at the number of email we exchange in a day. These all volumes is where if you wanted to store, analyze, and process, the big data comes into picture, the cloud comes into picture, where, as I said, we can store the data in a different distributed process, data near to the location, and then probably we can analyze all this data from our data processing engine. And as I see, this massive data inflow has given rise to cloud adoption. And as the cloud is growing, the new opportunities are being created, new capabilities are being introduced every day, a new tools comes. Whatever we were having within our on-premises environment, slowly beyond that, they are migrating or they're making available on the cloud as well. When we talk about the big data like Teradata or Hadoop, everything is in the cloud-based distributed system. Same way, even the smaller section like SQL, which caters both the small and the large sector, is also available on the cloud. And from there, everybody can, you just buy the services and you can consume it. Similarly, it applies to other tools as well. But my focus will be, I will try to keep the focus on SQL. When we talk about the Azure SQL database, so there are several configurations on which we can go. So we can have a single database. We can have an elastic pool, which is like a bunch of resources with the databases, and they can use each other's resources based on availability. So it is best way to utilize your optimize your resource utilization. Then you have hyperscale, which can, if a process needs more power, more energy, it can scale on fly. And then also we have serverless. But apart from that, we also have a price on the tiering basis, like you have a vCore model and DTU model. So vCore model is more about when we are talking how much CPU do we need depending on our work. So we can buy or we can subscribe our database on a DTU model or on a vCore model. So DTU model is more about the combination of your CPU, your memory, and your I/O. So Microsoft has combined all these three components as and termed it as a DTU. Any given time, if whichever higher utilization you're having will be representing your utilization of that DTU. And the vCore is more about how many CPU you want. You have more power because you can limit your CPU or increase your CPU power. You can increase your memory, the RAM. And the vCore model is more become realistic when we are trying to migrate our databases from in-house to lift and shift processing. So in that case, if you try to migrate your application and databases with a higher throughput, then probably the vCore model is more ideal. And if I just highlight, look at the RAM support, which we can have. It's saying that probably we can 4.8 GB RAM we can have. And the best part of in the on-premises, we have something called cluster and the HA. So business critical on the cloud also have the similar feature, but it is more powerful and it's more faster. In a business critical setup, normally we will have the 2 to 4 database servers, and they all will have their local SSD drive. So which means even the data get replicated, being an SSD drive, they are very fast. It's a very fast application. And one of them you can use as a read and write, but other one you can use as a read only. If any problem happens, say on the primary server, it can automatically, the secondary server becomes your primary and the read write will move to the next one. So it makes sure that your database and your services are up in the maximum given time. When we take about the large volume of data, it comes the hyperscale, where we can have the storage up to 100 terabyte, and it is growing as we speak. The capacity are growing. There are a lot of things have changed over a period of time. We are still in the evolving phase of this massive growth. So if we talk about what is the difference, so as I said, in on-premises environment, like our infrastructure team or our IT support team will monitor everything from networking, from your storage, your server, your permission, your OS, everything. So the first step normally a company and organization do, they try to put certain aspect of your server onto the say cloud or VM configuration. Then your server storage networking, you don't have to manage. You can just consume it from the cloud vendor. But other OS, what OS you will install, and what server and applications your database solution will install, it still reside with us and we manage them. So if we look at as infrastructure as a service, so we are responsible for managing the OS, patching them, and all other works. But when we try to pass that also and just look at our application, what we are monitoring and the data, then we move to the platform as a services. At that time, while buying the services, we tell them, okay, what OS we need, what all software we need. So we just get a ready-made platform and we just use it. But when you talk about software as a services, so that also goes away. We just say, okay, which software we want, let's say as SQL Azure. So we just buy an Azure services and we create a database and we consume the services. So all the underlying management in terms of patching, the backup, your network configuration, everything goes to the cloud vendor. It is same for all the vendors. So on the Azure SQL, as we were talking, like we can have on premises, and if we want to migrate to the cloud and we are not very sure the legacy system, if we are not very sure like what level of things are there, and still we want to monitor the OS layer, or there are some other features which we don't want to give away on a public network, then the virtual machine is the first option, where you get like similar server, we get a virtual machine on the cloud, and based on our requirement, we install the OS, and then we on top we put our SQL server. It's a virtual machine only, so that means we are responsible for patching, backup, and all other activity as normal. But as we move towards that, because that's not the prime objective to use the cloud, it's more about, okay, how best we can use it, minimize our activity or a task in terms of monitoring the infrastructure. Let's put those time and the value in terms of adding the value or improving the service layer. So we move to the SaaS services, where we can have a managed instance or we can have a database. And Elastic Pool, as I said, is more about you combine couple of databases. You purchase a set of services in terms of DTU, and when a particular database within that pool is want more utilization, they can take it. They can use those services, and when the utilization is low, that same the same resources can be used by other databases. So as I said, the database is the fully managed platform as a service engine, and the database management function, upgrade, patching, backup, and monitoring are all handled by Microsoft. And we can use all these services to know that how the backups are happening, what is the patch label, what is the we can monitor like how many CPU, what is the CPU utilization, DTU utilization, any performance issue. Those all we can monitor, which we'll talk in the coming slide or in some time from now. Okay, so let's have a look how we can build a server, a database, and we will also try to migrate a small database. So to have a SQL server, first we need to log into the portal.azure.com. We should have a subscription. From there, what first we need required to have a resource group. Resource group is a logical name of a first layer under which like we will create our databases and all the things. So it's like as a you can say as a department. So in that department, whatever operates, we can look at from that resource group. And if we delete the resource group, all the subsequent object will be lost. To handle that all operation, there are three modes. We can use the portal. We can also do through PowerShell, and we can also use, and some places we can use TSQL. For this demo purpose, we'll be going to on the portal. Okay, so let me just do the portal. So this is how the SQL portal, Azure portal looks like. These are the listing of services, what is recently or commonly used by us will be listing here, but we can have a different set of dashboard also we can design if we want to monitor it properly. If we click on here, we can see the different services, whatever is available, which we can use. The list is big, but let's we'll limit ourselves to the SQL database. So either we can type here SQL database service and it will appear. So currently I already have 3 database, but yeah, we'll go and create a new one. So for the database services, the first thing what we need is, as I said, a subscription, and then it says what resource group you can have. So I already have created a demo here, so we'll use it. Then it comes a database name. We have to remember that the database name has to be unique. So if we say demo test, so it's saying it's matching all the condition. And for a database, we need to have a server. This is a virtual server. I created 2 of them, but if you don't have, when you are doing the first time, we can just create a server from here also. And again, the server name has to be unique because that is a requirement. It need to be accessible across the globe. So if it is not unique, we can't access it from different places. Let's see, still it's not okay. Okay, so now it is saying that it's a unique and which location we want to have it. So I'll leave it US. You can select any location, whichever area you're working. Let's say if I am in Australia, so I can go and select Australia. It says not having central. Okay, so let's go back because I have demo account. So we'll stick to location here, and we have to define admin ID and password for it. So I just give a ID and password. So now you can see it's ready. It says that what kind of server we want. So let's say general purpose 2 core with 32 GB storage. We can change it if you want to change. So if we want to go as a DTU based, let's say if you go to standard, so it says that in DTU based you have a maximum limit and these all database size we can change. It says how much DTU you want. So by default S0 is 10 and an estimated per month cost will be around 20.6 Australian dollar. So let's say apply. If you want to have a backup, locally or replicated across location, we can do a selection here. I will leave it to the local redundant. For now, I will just leave it everything as a default. We'll talk it in a minute. And we are trying to create. So it will go and first it will create the server, what we have requested. It will virtual server and then it will go and create the database. So normally it takes around 4 to 5 minutes. So we'll let it run. In the meantime, we will see the existing one, like how it looks like. So this is one of server which I have created few days back. And if you see, there are 2 databases we do have. To access these databases, first we have to make sure that the firewall is set up, because by default, even if you know the ID password, you can't access it. So we need to give the IP in the server so that a person can access it. In your system, you will always find whichever system you're accessing, there'll be some client IP address. It will display your system and you can click on add client IP. It will append here. If we want to, when we're talking about this is still running. If we want to create a database, once this is ready, so we can create a database in the existing server. In that time, we just have to type the name here, like what the name of we want, what is the configuration we are looking for, and how the backup will be there. The moment we do, the database get created for our use. It's a quite a fast process. It takes very little time to make a new databases and start working on it. The other thing which you'd like to notice here is like if you notice this database we have as a basic, and when we start using it, a lot of user is coming, a lot of requests coming. There may be a time when this will become an issue. So before it become an issue, we can check the performance, like how the performance is there of our database. So this is one of when I was doing that database creation and migration, the performance analysis, the Microsoft itself displays there, and it will give you from DTU perspective, what is my consumption going on over a period of time. We can see in last 1 hour, which is default. We can go 24 hours and we can look at 7 days. So 24 hours basically will give you an idea in a day of in a 24 hours period of time, what is the utilization say during business hours or during off business hours, and that help us to understand, do we need to upgrade our server? Do we need to add more power? At the bottom, you can see it also gives you what is the alert is more about. So it says that at this period of time, the database DTU consumption was very high. So it is saying I was consuming almost 100% of DTU. And it's also saying that the database is currently being basic service tier and hit the resource limit. Means we in the basic we have a very low limitation of IO, and because of IO activity more, it reached 100%. We can drill it further down also if we want to drill it, like what is the DTU percentage was there in with regard to IO, with regard to CPU, and we can see this in the graphical way. And as I said, if any of these three of them will hit 100%, the overall value will reach its limitation. So in this graph, we can see that the DTU was 100% and the CPU was almost 99% used at that time, but log IO was around 47% average utilization was there. Okay, so let's see how it looks when we talk about in the real way. So here we look at the performance checking. We can see how we can scale up a database. And we'll also see, like, if the CPU utilization is reaching, say, a certain percentage of 80% or 90%. So can it's possible that the Azure should alert us? The Azure should alert the database administrator to making sure we are reaching the limitation and we must act. Or we can also have is like an alert coming saying that, okay, it's need your attention. Make sure that you're reducing the load on your server activity to make sure that it doesn't hit 100%. And we will also just have a small look on the cost management, like, okay, over a period of time, when we buy a database or when we have servers and the storage, everything, how the cost looks like, and does it helps us to visualize or plan anything. Okay, so let's go back to our server. I think it should be ready now. Yeah, it says the deployment was successful. So if we go here, we can see our database is ready here. This is what it says. The server name we haven't used Elastic Pool. And it's saying we are using the pricing tier of standard 0 and we have 10 DTU. This will give you the resource name, as we are using the demo test resource in the beginning. If you remember, we just selected. And this is the graph which talks about how the usage is going on. So when started deploying or getting, the usage was high, but now nothing is happening. So it is back to 0%. The advantage of Azure database is the big thing is, like, your data is always encrypted. So your transparent inscription is always on. So your backup at rest, your data at rest is also encrypted to make sure that the security is not an issue. You can also do automatic tuning. So automatic tuning is more about if you have a query or a query which is performing poor because the condition of your query needs an index. So it will go and automatically create an index so that your performance goes up. If it monitors also, like if we are having an index which is not used, it can delete that index as well so that your performance improves. So to look at some of the performance, if we So whenever we go to a database and if we click on the overview, so it will basically give us this performance page here, saying that how the performance over a period of time is going, and these all recommendation will be there. This moment, this is not having any. So if we click on any of those places, it will go into more detailed analysis, and we can just drill it down further to know that how much DT usage between period of time, and we can add the different metrics. We can add like what we want to monitor: CPU percentage, disk IO, or space allocation, and it will start showing us here. Which was not possible if we are talking about on-premises, because on-premises, if we want to monitor this detail, we always use to have a third-party tool or different tools. It was like we can do it, but little differently. But in Azure, like we can do everything from the same window, and these all information are specific to a particular database. So we know that even if we on the same server, if we have multiple databases, but as I said, this server is just a virtual server name, and databases all are individually. So their performance monitored and measured individually. The performance of one database does not affect the performance of other database. So that's one very good thing I would say we have. So we were talking about so suppose we have a database and we notice that its performance is degrading. Now we have more user coming. We need to increase the performance, or we have to give the server more power so that it can handle uh, uh, the more requests. We don't have any history here. If we go to, sorry, let's. So we're talking if we go to increase the power of the individual database. So we can go to the pricing tier, and then from here we can change it to either standard or premium depending on what we are looking. So the basic is more about just when you start a database, but definitely if you'd like to have some performance, we need to go on a higher level. So as we increase the power in the different DTU layer, you see the number of the DTU get increased. So if we are on S2, we will get a 50 DTU, and also we can increase our database size. So they are all interlinked. if we go on a Premier, so which is like more IO intensive workload, then you get the basic one, you get 125 on the P1, but this is directly proportionate to the cost we will incur on a monthly basis. So we will go on S2, and it's as simple. The moment we click, the database get migrated there. I mean, from the basic, it will migrate to the S2 level. It will take few minutes, and this is done with your services online. Nothing goes, down. Only when the final things happen, sometime. Oh, it failed. So sometime your connection just get reset, and you can just go and if you just refresh, it will go away. So this is how simple you can upscale your database just on a few click. If you need more power, just go from S2 to S3 or S5, and if it is more resource intensive, we can go to on a higher scale. For some reason, I'm getting error here, but the process remains same. We can get the access of these all databases from our SSMS tool, from where normally as a DBA we monitor. Like here. So what is the difference if we are talking about? So difference is like if you look at on a Azure database server, you only get your databases, the user databases, but in the system databases, you don't see anything. Where if it is on premises, we get the model MSDB and the TMDB we can see. We don't get SQL agent or any of these server features on Azure databases. These all features are separate, where we need to buy them as a separately. Here you can't do a lot of the right click. It doesn't work like you can't do everything whatever we can do in your on-premises databases, but most of them we can do through command line or SQL query. On a security also, it is just the login which exists. So to connect to any Azure databases, we just have to give the server name and the password which we had created during those server creation. And it will connect. So what are the differences we have compared to if we talk about the on-premises traditional DB activity and Azure activity? So a traditional database, we as a DBA, we were more responsible about the making sure the backups are correct, recoveries are working on time, the files are being stored properly. We were more about the securing and the managing databases, monitor the system performance. As I said, it normally it doesn't give the performance at a database layer. It gives at a server layer most of the time. But if we look at the DBA activity in Azure, so we are not looking at the backup in a very granular level. Azure does a backup and all the databases are in a full recovery mode, so we can always do a point in time recovery. We can, we were looking in the performance, so from there we can always monitor the performance of individual databases, like what is the CPU utilization, what is the IO going, and it gives us the feature to up to 7 days to see in a graphical way like how performance is happening. We can monitor the DT usage. We can configure the alerts that if your CPU utilization or your DT utilization is going certain percentage, it should alert. And while defining an alert, it can say that okay, it is critical or it is highly critical. So it comes with that priority and which can grab our attention. The other thing is like on premises, we are more about we are responsible to install any patch, but in Azure, it all happens in the background by the Microsoft team. So we need not worry about it. And the good thing, like our database doesn't go down, but in case of our on-premises, the database downtime is a big concern. And we always have to jingle with the business in terms of critical thing to get a downtime and do the installation. These are the features which basically enables to adopt the SQL service as more on a cloud environment compared to on-premises.
Sorry, Atul, it's 13 minutes left of the presentation.
Thank you. The other advantage of cloud is like in the backup, normally the backup is a big thing in the normal DBA activity. We store a backup to a disk storage and it has a limitation. So if we want to use the cloud storage, it's pretty simple. We go and make a storage account and then we can directly do a database backup to the cloud. So being a cloud storage account, there is no limitation. We don't have to worry about. We can define the life cycle of those backup files, and those backup files can automatically be recycled over a period of time. In general, like if in Azure database, so DBA are not primarily responsible for backup, as I said, because Microsoft does a backup and it retains from 7 days up to 35 days. So the basic tier will remain for 7 days, but standard and premier remain for, we can store those backup up to 35 days. Depending on the thing, we can also have a long-term retention plan where a backup can be stored up to 10 years. But with that, there's few limitation also. When we are doing a restore of a database in Azure, we always have to restore as a new name. We cannot overwrite existing database, which we can easily do on our on-premises. The other feature, like in on-premises, when we talk about the data masking, it's a little tedious. We have to write the script and make sure that, but in the Azure environment, we always have this inbuilt function which we can just use to mask the data. And we can also enable the different set of users, like the normal user can see just the mask data, but if you are the data owner role or admin role, you can see the full data. So these all things make our life much easier. So what is missing in Azure? So we are missing the SQL's agent service, which as we say that we can only see the master database, no MSDB. A lot of SP configure which we use on premises we can't do, because if we are using Azure SQL database, so it is a shared service. So changing the configuration is not allowed. A lot of DBCC command doesn't work there. The database mail, again, that's something which we are very fond to, but those things are like is not there. You can't run a profiler. Again, in the on-premises database, when we install the SQL Server, we get we have the capacity to install all the services, your SQL Server, your reporting services, your integration services, analysis services. But when we talk about Azure a database server, then we are looking at individual service as a separate. So obviously the analysis service, your reporting services, it doesn't exist there. We can still use them, but yeah, the Azure, we have to go for that particular business. The log shipping is the missing, and the database mirroring is something which we will miss there. Availability group, as I said, if we are using the business critical, it is available under business critical as their configuration, but yeah, we can't have a separate configuration for that. Okay, if you try to run a command which is not supported, we will always get some error like this. So like below command, I was trying to change the parallelism to 25, but it says no, we can't do that. So yeah, if there are some advantages, obviously there are some limitation comes, but the advantages are much more than it's endless compared to the limitation what we see. So these are some of the options. Like if it is not there, there are some options where we can have on-premises agent. We were talking about the database job module, which is coming there. We can have the alert rules. We can define like, okay, and on certain CPU, DTU limit or utilization percentage, just raise an alert, and we can define, okay, how much time it should monitor before it fire an email back to us. For reporting, we can use the Power BI. So Power BI is a very powerful tool, and it can talk to a variety of the data sources, including SQL, and we can do that reporting. For analytic services like Azure Synapse is there available, and we can have some extended event which is very light, which doesn't put pressure on the resources, so that probably we can use. And the best thing is like the geo replication for our DR purpose. So geo replication is more about we can replicate our databases from one center to any other center across the globe in most of the cases. Some of the command which is like there, but yeah, they are database scope. So if you want to like for testing purpose, if you want to clear the cache, so we can just run the command as a database scoped and it will work. So as you said, for analytic services, so as Microsoft offers Azure Synapse, and it has a lot of features and capability and the different tools which can be utilized to gain the full advantage of the database analysis, and it can support a different variety of data as well. The Azure Data Lake is very fast, and it can store all different types of data, and we can have the ACL level of security configured so that data can be accessed from in a secured way as well. And because the way it is growing, the Cosmos DB is like it's a globally distributed, highly scalable and very fast databases the Microsoft has come up with, and it supports the 5 different type of API. So it's a global distribution databases. You can have you have no limitation. You can increase as much as it's always say your latency is very low, and the SLAs are very good. You can see that you can have the key value data, you can have column family, you can have the document database also, or even you can have the graphical databases. They have a different API through which we can query with them and just use them. These are some of the resources we can always use to get more information about the Azure databases. And for the career perspective, I think the DP300 certification is something which we can always look forward. So I think that's bring to the session from my side, and I'm thankful to all of you, especially the Marco, because he's the one who mentored me, who guided me But big thanks to Manohar Puna, who gave valuable advice, and the Ben and William for giving me this opportunity to share this learning or the knowledge with all of you.
Yeah!